Hello and welcome to the Artful Teaching Podcast. This is Heather Francis going a little solo today. I just wanted to share an excerpt from an interview we had with a Native artist with you on the podcast today. We invited Terry Goedel, who is a Native American hoop dancer, to the studio to do some video and audio recording. We had collaborated with him on lesson plans about the hoop dance, and we wanted to include some demonstrations as part of those resources. And so while we had him in the studio, we got to listen to him talk for a little bit about what the hoop dance is, what it means to him and his family. He showed us his regalia that he wears when he hoop dances, and he taught us about what the symbols mean and how the regalia is individual and different for every hoop dancer. Terry also, this is interesting, is a retired math teacher, and so he also demonstrates and shares for us how he sees mathematics in the hoop dance and how he makes connections between mathematical patterns and the performance of the hoop dance. So that was really fun to listen to, and excited to share that part too, because, here on the Artful Teaching Podcast, we love arts integration. So it's really great to listen to Terry talk about that. He also talks a little bit about his individual journey as an artist, how he came to be a hoop dancer, how it's changed his life, and how he has shared it with his family. So this is a great interview I'm excited to share. Please enjoy, and when you're listening, if you realize that you would really like to see a visual demonstration of what he's talking about, you can visit our website and see the show notes. We'll have linked in the show notes an actual video of this interview so that you can see him talking and sharing his hoops and regalia for the camera. And maybe it's helpful to share in your classroom. Maybe it's helpful just for you to understand better about the hoop dance. And maybe you just like listening to the stories of an artist, and an Indigenous artist at that. So thank you for being here on the Artful Teaching Podcast, and enjoy.
Hello, my name is Terry Goedel. I'm a Yakima Tulalip Indian, originally from Washington State. In 1971, I saw the hoop dance for the very first time as a young man. About a year later, I began hoop dancing. I have been hoop dancing now for 50 years. For me, the hoop is important. It represents, and the natives call it, the circle of life. And it's important because it tells the life cycle of each one of us and the journey that we have and the journey that we're on. So for my family and myself, as we go throughout the country, we share the Native American culture, at least one part of the Native American culture called the hoop dance. The hoops are proportional, so it's necessary for the hoops to be a particular size for any individual. If the hoops are too small, then they won't really work too well, whether we're trying to get our body through the hoop. If they're too small, we can't do that. If they're too big, then they kind of cross in places. If you can think of a Venn diagram almost has a perfect crossing, which is a mathematical term that we use, and we find where the center is. When the Venn diagram overlaps too much, then you have a big space in the middle. When the hoops are used, it's almost like having a Venn diagram where you have 3 even spaces between the hoops. If the hoops are too big, then an individual has them kind of squished together and the center is bigger. And if the hoops are too little, then the Venn diagram in the middle will be too small. So hoops should be proportional to the individual. They should be as tall as an individual, and 3 hoops should stand on top of one another to be the height of an individual using the hoops. So the various shapes that we make, as a hoop dancer, we're trying to get people to see the story, and we're trying to reflect that story into the individual to be able to see within themselves who they are. So for myself and my family, we're telling the story of our life and the journey that we take. So as the story begins, we're kind of going through, to begin with, the first hoop. And for the Native Americans, they believe that this is a healing dance. So as we take the hoop through our body, as we're twisting it around or through our body, we believe that that's a healing that's happening. As it continues and we pick up the second hoop, we begin to see the small bird as it grows. And as we kind of transfer from one thought to another, we see different formations appearing. When we get to 3 hoops, we actually see the bird with 2 wings, and it transfers into butterflies. And as we go to 4, we see the bird get bigger, and then we see flowers and plants and animals. As it goes to 5, we see maybe a crocodile. The idea is to get people to see it from their view and not from my view, because I see one thing, whereas someone else might see something else. Many years ago, I was teaching some preschoolers, and I had my hoops, and they were all orange. And as I, gathered my hoops, one of the young kids raised their hand and said, "I really liked your pumpkin." And I thought for a minute, I said, "A pumpkin? I didn't make a pumpkin." And then as I thought, it was the perfect thought for them, because they saw all the orange wrapped around, and it was about Thanksgiving time, and so they did. That's what they saw. So the idea is not for me to tell people what they see. The idea is for people to see and tell me what they've seen. So for the Native American hoop dancers, depending on where you come from, each dancer kind of has their own kind of regalia, clothing that they wear. For me, I come from the Northwest. I grew up in Tulalip, which is between Seattle, Washington, and Vancouver, BC. And we use the Northwest style of designs. My uncle was a carver up there, and I've got a nephew who's a carver up there. So the designs are created to help an individual see different animals in nature. And on my particular regalia, I have the orca, and the orca is a symbol that we use for the Northwest in the Tulalips. It is a symbol they use for their tribe. On the front, I have the sun, and on the back, I have the moon. So for me, this is talking about the creation and the plants and animals that we see, the birds and the plants and the animals, and it's kind of the life cycle in its completeness and everything that we need. For each dancer, they choose their colors, their designs. So if someone was from the Southwest, their design, they could go maybe without sleeves because it is hot. If you go to the north, into Canada, they might use buckskin to help them stay warm because it's colder up there, and they want to use a different kind of material. So each dancer uses what they need to, kind of remembering that it's easier to dance with a little less than it is a little more, because the hoops are trying to, catch on to the clothing, and then you have problems with that. But each dancer designs their own regalia, and whether they make it or somebody else, along with the beadwork, you either have to make it yourself or you have to get somebody to make it for you. For Native Americans, anybody can hoop dance. The strange thing is, in 1971, I saw the dance. It was a dying art, and I didn't know it was a dying art, and it was something I really enjoyed. As my kids grew, I didn't realize that I should have taught them, and it wasn't until my oldest daughter got to be about 18, and she came up to me one day and said, "Dad, can you teach me how to dance?" And I thought, wow, I should have done this a long time ago. At one time, women weren't allowed to hoop dance. This was a man's dance. And in today's world, we have women who have particular dances they do, and we have men that do particular dances. When my daughter came to me, I thought, well, yeah, I guess I can show you. And today we have both men and women that hoop dance. And I don't know that there was any particular reason why women didn't hoop dance. To me personally, I think maybe it was because when they're pregnant, they can't really dance. There's a lot of things they can't do. And to me, I think that was probably the purpose for it. Today, anybody that is native is allowed to dance. You don't have to get any permission from anybody because it is an independent dance that's done. So anybody who is native would be allowed, even people who are not native. The real difficulty is people that are not native sometimes have a tendency to tell people that they are native, and that's a little offensive to natives. So I try personally to teach other natives the hoop dance from any age. I have 15 grandchildren, and all of them have a set of hoops that I make for them when they're born. I began dancing as a young man. I was trying to find who I was. And I think in the world today, there's a lot of people like that. We're having difficulty identifying who we are, especially our roots. And I was living on the reservation, and I was Native, but I didn't want to be Native. And everybody identified me and saw me as Native, but I didn't really want to be that person. It was only when I saw the hoop dance for the first time that something inside of me changed, and I found a power, a strength, a light inside that began to burn that nobody contained and controlled but me. And as I found the power of that light, it moved me to do things that were greater than things that I would have done had anybody tried to help me get there. So as I began searching, when I found that, I decided I needed to go and learn this hoop dance. And right now I'm writing a book, and I'm close to being finished. And in the book I talk about the change that occurred to me. And it was almost instantaneously as that changed, and I changed. And when I went outside, I was the same person, but I saw myself different for the first time. And I was okay with who I was. And I think that's what we're all trying to do. We're trying to find out who we are. For me, this dance was healing because it healed something that I didn't have. I didn't know what I was looking for, but this helped me find that thing that I was looking for. So each person, as we go from day to day, there are things in the world that will heal us and help us. And for the Native Americans, they believed that as they used this, it either healed themselves or it healed others. That first time I saw the dance, 3 dancers danced in front of me and they healed me. They began that healing process. So the healing happens internally to an individual, but it could be to me as a dancer, and it could be to someone else. In the Southwest, there's shaman right now. I know a Navajo gentleman, he's about 80 years old. And what he does is, a long time ago, they made these hoops out of willow. And what he does is he makes these out of willow, and he goes to heal an individual. And after he heals them, he takes these willow hoops and he burns them. He creates a fire. And it's that smoke that takes those prayers up to heaven, to the Great Spirit, to heal those individuals. So there's a lot of different ways that an individual is healed. But for me personally, it was something that happened when I was young and I was looking. And it's that teaching moment that you have that if you take it and it happens, then, miracles can happen.
Well, wasn't that a treat? Thank you so much for being here on the Artful Teaching Podcast. Remember to subscribe on your favorite listening platform. Follow us on social media at Every Child, Every Art on Instagram or at BYU Arts Partnership on Facebook. Check out the show notes. Again, we have a link to a video of this episode so you can see Terry talking and demonstrating and showing his regalia. And don't forget to check out all our lesson plans on our website. We have dance, drama, music, visual arts, media arts, language arts, lesson plans for math, science, English language arts, social studies, social and emotional well-being. We have quite the collection. So go check those out and check out the tribe-approved Native American lesson plans as well. And save the date. We now have the date for Arts Express Summer Conference for Elementary School Teachers for 2023. We will be meeting in Saratoga Springs, Utah at a middle school on June 6th and 7th. So put that on your calendar. We're excited for that. But registration won't open till February, but it's always good to start planning things for our summer calendars. All right, well, that's all for today. And that's all for this year. This is the final episode of our 2022 year, and we will see you in the new year with another Native American series. We recorded Brenda in the studio and have a series of really enlightening video and audio podcasts to share with you next year that we're excited to share. So Happy New Year. Happy holidays. We will see you in 2023. Thanks for joining us and have an artful day.
Artful Teaching is made possible by the BYU Arts Partnership and the McKay School of Education.
Thanks to James Houston for editing this podcast. Music was generously provided by Connor Chi, a Navajo Diné composer and performer.
And special thanks to all of the teachers who are changing lives every day while serving in schools.
If you like what you heard, please leave us a review. You can find all the show notes for this episode and more resources at advancingartsleadership.com.
And don't forget to check out our tribe-approved lesson plans on the website as well.
I'm Heather Francis.
And I'm Callie Phlox.
And I'm Brenda Bial.
Wishing you an artful journey.
Listen to the Utah Teacher Fellows podcast. We explore the greatness of the profession through individual teacher stories. Join Audrey Dameron and Ryan Rarick as they speak to teachers and teacher leaders throughout the state. Recent episodes include Audrey explaining her decision to run for state school board. Casey Weaver, a teacher in the Ogden School District, spoke about the rooms full of human potential she encounters as a kindergarten teacher. And coming this month, we speak with Marley McClune about overcoming imposter syndrome and how she strives to own her own greatness. We love discussing a wide array of complex issues that make up the teaching profession. We also would love to engage with our audience. Check our show notes for our email address where you can submit mailbag questions that we will discuss in future episodes. Find the Utah Teacher Fellows podcast at theutahteacher.com or on any major podcasting platforms such as iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon, and Stitcher.